Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's me, Kenny Polcari, your host of the party. And today is Thursday, February 3rd, 2022. And here's the things you need to know, right? Stocks advanced yesterday on better earnings, all while the ADP misses really big. But earnings are carrying the story at the moment. Facebook reported after the bell and gets clobbered down 21%. You can assume the report was not so good. The negative tone this morning permeating the markets. Tech is down big, as is the broader market with the U.S. futures. And it's another big day for earnings. 50 plus companies are going to report. Amazon, the big boy, after the bell. So expect lots of conversation about Amazon all day long, especially after what happened with Facebook yesterday. And oil, it's taken a little bit of a breather after its stunning advance this year, but don't expect it to collapse. Bitcoin and Ethereum are under a bit of pressure. 30,000 is key for Bitcoin. 2,000 is key for Ethereum. And what are we having for dinner tonight? We're having the Pasta Nonna, so I'll explain that to you when we get to the end. Okay, so look. Stocks extended their recent winning streak yesterday. Earnings during the day continue to provide support for the current narrative that while earnings are slowing from the rapid pace seen last year, they are not collapsing by any stretch. And the estimates that we've been prepared for have not been out of line. With more than 300 companies that have reported so far, 75% of them have beaten the numbers. Now that's down from, last quarter's 82 or 84% of the reports last quarter, but we knew that. This should not be a surprise when we started to see earnings start to pull back. So one way or the other, earnings season is not over. We're just a little bit more than halfway through. So we've got the rest of this week and all of next week, right? So corporate earnings have been good enough, but will they be good enough to continue to push prices higher as the Fed changes monetary policy and the level of interest rates? Most likely not. We've been talking about that, but that should not be a surprise either. As we make our way through the maze of rising rates, many expect stocks to reprice lower with bouts of rallies when stocks get short-term oversold, just like we've seen over the last 4 or 5 days. After the January turmoil, February came in like gangbusters, investors suddenly finding value in all the same names that they were selling with abandon just days before. The Nasdaq losing 16% in January, while the Russell gave up 22%. As January ended, though, we've seen tech and the SMIDs, right, the Russell Small and Mid Caps, finding so much of the love as investors found big bargains amongst a lot of those names that they'd beaten up. And both of those indexes are now up 10% and 7% respectively just in the last week. By the end of the day yesterday, the Dow gained 225 points or 0.6%. The S&P added 43 points. The Nasdaq rose 70 points or 0.5%. The Transports added 130 points or 0.8%, while the Russell was the canary in the coal mine, bucking the trend, falling 22 points or just about 1%. The eco data yesterday, which was a big miss. ADP reported a loss of 300,000 jobs last month versus the expected 150,000 gain, right? And if you were searching for the news, you're really not going to find it. The Wall Street Journal didn't even feature a story, nor are you going to find one on CNBC or Bloomberg. What you will find is a sentence or two buried deep in another story. The administration did, though, release a story on the 1st, right? February 1st, warning that Friday's NFP report will be ugly due to the Omicron in the story. They lowered the expectations ahead of the report, trying to control the narrative versus letting the media take control and spin it. Several officials say that the week the surveys were taken was the exact height of the illness post the holidays, to which I would say, well, if that's true, then the estimate would have reflected that, right? How could the estimate be plus 150,000 jobs when everyone knows that the survey was taken at the worst possible moment? Like there's a disconnect there, right? Doesn't seem to make sense to me, but no matter what, it is what it is. And even if it is weak, do not expect the Fed to change their narrative at all. At this point, they cannot. They can't suddenly say that this one data point is going to change the whole narrative. So no matter what the report reveals, the Fed is on target to raise rates at the March meeting, and that might put some pressure on stocks once again. Now look, they may not raise them 50 basis points the way some have argued, including myself, but rates are going higher. Period. The end. So don't think that they're not. Now look, all day long yesterday, there was all kinds of speculation over what Facebook, now Meta, what their earnings were going to be post the close, right? After the surprisingly strong Google report the night before. Facebook traded just around the flat line for most of the day. It was up a bit, but nothing really dramatic. But then the bell rang at 4 p.m. and Facebook released their earnings. And it was not pretty at all. They missed on a range of metrics, and before Market could even attempt to explain it, traders, investors, and algos just smashed it, sending the stock down 22% before you could even blink your eye. In the end, there wasn't a lot to like about this report at all. And this morning, the stock is quoted down $60 from last night's close of $323. At 6 o'clock this morning, it was trading around $260 a share, or a 19% decline. And that was casting a pall over the whole tech sector and other social media names. Snap down 16%, Pinterest down 7%, Twitter down 8%, and the broader market as well, kind of getting dragged down in the negative tone. This morning, U.S. futures were lower. The Dow was down 120, the S&P off 50, the NASDAQ down 320 points, while the Russell was off by another 20. There are at least 20 companies reporting prior to the opening. Lilly, Bib, Honeywell, Hershey, Merck, BDX, ICE, TW, XYL are all reporting before the market opens. And then we're going to hear from another 25 after the market closes. And they include Amazon, Ford, Pinterest, Snap, ATVI, right, Activision, as well as a range of others. Ecodata today includes the challenge of job cuts. Initial jobless claims of 245,000 is what's expected. Continuing claims of 1.6 million. Market U.S. services of 50.9, dangerously close to contraction territory, which is sub 50, right? Although the ISM services PMI is expected to be 59.5. So there's a disconnect between the two, so it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Factory orders are expected to be down 0.4%, durable goods down 0.9%. Tomorrow is all about the non-farm payroll report that I think they will dismiss because of all the weakness that it's going to show. They're going to call it a one-off, and there's no reason to panic. The economy's fine, et cetera, et cetera. And the Fed is on schedule to raise rates. Keep your eyes on the unemployment rate, right, which is expected to be 3.9%, and average hourly earnings year over year of up 5.2%. And if that's true, that's up from 4.7% last month, suggesting further upward pressure on wages. So think once again about the wage price spiral inflation that we've been talking about. Oil took a little bit of a break yesterday, falling 0.4%, many pointing to the weak ADP report. Okay, you can go with that, since the commodity has done nothing but advance all year. It's up 22% since January 1st. So if that's how you want to explain it away, then you just go ahead. Another issue is that Iran did come out and say that they were ready to come back to the oil market. If that's true, it will bring new supply, which could put some pressure on prices. But there's absolutely no indication that Iran is anywhere near that goalpost. So in the end, oil's not really retreating at all. Demand is strong. And the Russia-Ukraine crisis is still simmering on the back burner. And so depending on how that plays out, is going to drive the next move in oil prices, and we know what that means. European markets are all weaker this morning. Monetary policy decisions are due out of the Bank of England and the ECB today. Now, the Bank of England rose rates a second time in a row. The ECB, though, is going to put pressure on her, and that's going to help shape investor reactions. Eurozone inflation came in at up 5.1%. versus the expected decline of 4.4%, and that's going to put lots of pressure on Christine Lagarde, right, president of the ECB, to do something. Right? Like I said, the BOE was expected to announce a second rate increase, and in fact, they did, to combat rising inflation in the UK. Earnings are going to continue to drive the individual action, and the Russia-Ukraine situation is going to continue to drive the geopolitical conversation. This morning, Bitcoin is a little bit lower, trading at 36,500, while Ethereum is trading at 2,600. Remember those key levels to watch on Bitcoin are 30,000 and Ethereum is 2,000. And I know we're not that close, but it could happen very quickly. Last night, the S&P closed at 45.89, piercing its intermediate-term resistance trend line and appearing to want to push higher. That's not happening, at least today. The Facebook news is going to prove to be a bit unsettling, not only for Facebook, but also for the sexy high-growth names, and that's going to overflow into the broader market today. Investors are going to be watching the bevy of earnings reports, trying to discern the next move. I do not own Facebook. I never have, so I'm not really going to suffer in this. And I'm not a seller in the long-term portfolio. I'm putting new money to work in consumer staples, financials, and industrials, all areas that I've been talking about for months now that have all been outperforming. I think tech's going to take a leg lower, and that's going to provide for an opportunity to scoop some up again after we see that leg lower. I'm still in the camp that the S&P must test the lows that we put in on January 24th, which is 4,222 on the S&P, and that's before this is over. But you have to make your own decision, and wherever you land is where you land, and then that'll help you decide what's next. Okay, so what's for dinner tonight? Pasta Nonna, right? So this is a great dish. We never called it Pasta Nonna, but if you go to a restaurant, they'll put it on the menu as Pasta Nonna, right? It's a Sicilian grandmother's favorite. It's a very typical Sicilian dish, and yes, my grandmother used to make it too, but like I said, we just never called it Pasta Nonna, we just call it rigatoni and eggplant. Right? It's comfort food. It makes you feel really good. It's simple to make. And you can just serve this with your favorite Chianti, right? Not an expensive wine, a nice table wine, just something simple and easy because that's what this is about. It's about the simplicity of the dish. Okay, so for this you need garlic, olive oil, eggplant. You need cherry tomatoes in the can in their juice. You need salt and pepper, Vidalia onions, and ricotta salata. Now, ricotta salata is an unusual cheese, right? It's made from sheep's milk. The curds in the whey are pressed together and dried before aging, and it gives this cheese a very dense texture, very much like feta, but it's drier, right? It's not creamy like ricotta, but it is called ricotta salata, right? It's got a little bit of a salty, milky flavor. It's really good. So get started by bringing a large pot of salted water to a rolling boil, put it on the back burner, leave it there just so it's ready when you're ready to put in the rigatoni. Now, in a big, large frying pan, you're going to heat up some olive oil. You're going to add a couple of cloves of the sliced garlic, and you're going to saute it. Now add 2 medium or 1 really large diced Vidalia onion. Saute it until it's soft and translucent. You know the deal, 8 to 10 minutes or so. Now add in 4 12-ounce cans of cherry tomatoes in their juice. You want to turn the heat to medium-low, let them simmer, right? Now, with the back of the slotted spoon or even with a fork, you're going to crush some of the cherry tomatoes so that you have a chunky sauce while you're going to keep other tomatoes whole. Don't crush them all. You want it to kind of be a chunky sauce with pieces and some with whole tomatoes, right? Because they end up melting anyway, so don't worry about it. Season it with salt and pepper and keep the heat on low. Now, you want to make a garlic paste for the eggplant. So in the food processor, you're going to add 6 or 8 cloves of garlic and some olive oil. Blend it well. Add enough oil, right? You don't want it to be a dry paste. But it can't be really wet, right? It's got to be moist, right? Now you need to toss this paste with the cubed eggplant. So you got to make sure that it kind of gets all over the cubed eggplant. So now you want to cube the eggplant. So leaving the skin on, do not take the skin off. Cut the eggplant in half and then cut each half in half again and then cut into 1-inch strips down the side and then cut across to make the cubes, right? You want bite-sized cubes, not big cubes, just bite-sized cubes. You want to add that to a large bowl, toss it with the garlic paste, make sure that it's all coated and then let it sit for 10 minutes, right? Let it sit for 10 minutes. Now, in a separate saucepan, a saute pan, you're going to add a bit more olive oil and you're going to heat it up. Now take the eggplant, put it in that separate saute pan and saute it on medium-high heat. Season it with salt and pepper. You want to keep tossing the eggplant until it's cooked. Should take 15, maybe 18 minutes or so, right? Make sure to keep stirring. Don't let it burn. When complete, add it to the larger frying pan that has the tomatoes and the onions in it, right? Mix it all together. Taste it for seasoning and adjust if necessary. Now, use the pasta. For this one, we want rigatoni. Rigatoni is in the family of the penne pastas, right? It's a short, larger, beefier kind of pasta, and it screams for a hearty sauce with chunks of meat or veggies. In this case, we're using chunks of sauteed eggplant, right, with the cherry tomatoes. You want to cook it until it's al dente, 8 to 10 minutes. You know the deal, right? You want to strain the pasta, always reserving a mug full of water so that you can use it to return it to the pot. You want to put the pasta back in the pot, add a little bit of the water, get it moistened, and now add that pasta directly to the tomatoes and eggplant. Or if you have to, take the tomatoes and eggplant, add it to that pasta. You just need something you can mix it in, right? Allow it to blend, stir it, mix it, allow it to blend for 5 minutes or so. Now, always keep the heat on simmer, not high. You want to serve this in warm bowls, and then you want to take the ricotta salata and you want to shave it, right? So get a cheese grater and shave like pieces of ricotta salata and just put the ricotta salata on top when you serve it. Enjoy this with your favorite Chianti. That's it. Not any more complicated than that. It's very simple. Let me know how it comes on. Until tomorrow, take good care.